The observation deck of the Krell Confederation's Deep Space Monitoring Station stretched out like a gossamer web of interconnected platforms, each humming with the subtle vibrations of advanced technological systems. Zara Lynn's workstation occupied a modest corner of this vast complex, a space that felt simultaneously infinite and crushingly claustrophobic during the midnight shift. 3 moons of the distant colony world cast a pale blue-green light through the transparent aluminum viewports, creating ghostly reflections on the holographic displays. Most of her colleagues had long since retired to their personal quarters, leaving only the most junior technicians and a skeleton crew to monitor the endless expanse of space. Her 3-fingered hands moved with practiced precision across the quantum-sensitive interfaces, tracking the routine stellar movements that typically characterize her monotonous shifts. The Krell Confederation prided itself on comprehensive spatial surveillance, mapping every known region of space with meticulous detail. Yet tonight felt different. Something in the atmospheric generators seemed to pulse with an unusual rhythm, a barely perceptible vibration that set her nerves on edge. The first anomaly appeared so subtly that Zara Lynn almost missed it. A microscopic fluctuation, a ghost of a signal that would have been overlooked by less attentive monitors. But Zara Lynn had always been different. Where other technicians saw patterns, she saw potential. Where others accepted established knowledge, she questioned everything. She isolated the signal, running it through multiple verification protocols. The quantum correlator hummed, its crystalline matrix shifting colors as it processed the impossible data. Once, twice, a third time. Each analysis returned the same improbable result. Something was out there. The Maelstrom cluster had been a cosmic graveyard for millennia. Generations of spacecraft from countless civilizations had attempted to traverse its treacherous region, only to be reduced to atomic dust, gravitational storms that could crush neutron stars, quantum interference that could scramble the most advanced computational systems, radiation levels that would strip flesh from bone in milliseconds. No rational species would even consider approaching this region, let alone attempting to navigate through it. Yet the signal persisted. Zara Lynn felt a cold sweat building along her neural ridges. Her breathing became shallow, each exhale creating a momentary fog on the quantum reactive display. She began a deeper scan, routing additional sensor arrays to confirm her initial reading. The station's background noise seemed to fade, leaving only the soft pulse of her own circulatory system and the gentle hum of processing equipment. The signal strengthened. It wasn't just a random energy fluctuation. This was a vessel, a ship, moving through a region of space that should be utterly impassable. The mathematical improbability was staggering. The technological implications were mind-breaking. And it was human. Zara Lynn knew enough about human species to understand they were considered a relatively young civilization. Primitive, limited, confined to their small solar system and taking their first tentative steps into local space. They were not supposed to have the technological capability to even conceptualize a journey through the maelstrom, let alone actually attempt it. But Data did not lie. Her hands moved faster now, capturing every microscopic detail of the signal. Quantum positioning, gravitational interactions, electromagnetic signatures. Each piece of data was a puzzle fragment that made less and less sense the more she analyzed it. The ship wasn't just surviving in the maelstrom. It was navigating it with an elegance that suggested something far beyond mere survival. This was mastery. This was an understanding of physical laws that her own advanced civilization had never achieved. As the signal continued its impossible approach, Zara Lynn realized her entire understanding of the universe was about to change. Something extraordinary was coming. The central command chamber of the Krell Confederation's Deep Space Research Hub was a monument to institutional rigidity. Massive holographic displays lined the curved walls, each showcasing meticulously curated data streams that reinforced the Confederation's understanding of galactic dynamics. Commander Krellvax dominated the space, his massive frame a physical embodiment of bureaucratic authority. Zaralyn stood before the Senior Research Council, her data compilation projected behind her. The holographic representation of the impossible signal danced with quantum precision, a beautiful and terrifying mathematical ballet that seemed to mock everything the Council believed about interstellar navigation. "Explain," Krulvax demanded, his communication tendrils coiling with barely contained irritation. Her voice remained steady, despite the dozens of critical eyes boring into her. "The signal originates from a human vessel traversing the Maelstrom cluster. Its navigational capabilities suggest a level of technological understanding we've never encountered." A collective wave of dismissive chittering spread through the chamber. Senior researcher Pax Trill, a veteran of decades of spatial research, leaned forward. His multiple eyes narrowed, each focusing on a different aspect of her presentation. "Humans," he scoffed. "The same species that still burns fossil fuels. The civilization that considers rocket technology cutting edge. You expect us to believe they've somehow mastered quantum navigation through the most dangerous region of known space." The mockery was immediate and brutal. Researchers who had spent entire careers mapping the Maelstrom's impossible topography now laughed with a mix of condescension and genuine amusement. Zaralyn felt the heat of embarrassment crawling across her skin, but she refused to back down. "My readings are comprehensive," she continued. "I've cross-referenced multiple sensor arrays. The signal is consistent across quantum, gravitational, and electromagnetic spectra." Commander Krulvax's massive form shifted, his body language communicating complete dismissal. "Junior Technician Zaralyn, your career demonstrates promise. But this is nonsense. Humans lack the fundamental understanding of quantum mechanics required to survive milliseconds in the Maelstrom, let alone navigate through it." The unspoken message was clear: drop this line of investigation, or face professional consequences. But Zaralyn had always been different. Where others sought established boundaries, she saw opportunities for discovery. Her academic record was exceptional. Top percentile in quantum systems analysis, multiple commendations for innovative research approaches. She wasn't some naive junior technician making wild claims. She was a scientist. "With all due respect," she responded, her voice gaining strength, "the data speaks for itself. This isn't a hypothesis. These are empirical observations." Pax Trill approached her display, his specialized sensory tendrils scanning the holographic data. For a moment, something flickered in his multiple eyes, a hint of uncertainty. A microscopic crack in the institutional certainty. "Recalibrate your sensors," he finally said. "Run multiple diagnostic protocols. If there's even a fraction of validity to your claim, we need to understand its source." It was the closest to an endorsement she would receive. The council dispersed, their laughter and dismissive comments echoing through the chamber. Zaralyn knew what would happen next. Her research would be buried, redirected, potentially even suppressed. But she had copies, backups carefully hidden in quantum-encrypted storage systems that even the most advanced Confederation surveillance couldn't easily penetrate. Something was coming. Something that would challenge everything they understood about technological potential. And she was going to be the one to prove it. As she gathered her equipment, a small holographic message flickered briefly on her personal device. A timestamp, a coordinate set, a promise of something extraordinary. The hunt had just begun. The personal quarters of junior research technicians were typically utilitarian, compact living spaces designed for efficiency rather than comfort. Zaralyn's room had transformed into something entirely different. Quantum processors scavenged from decommissioned research units lined makeshift shelves. Holographic displays hung in carefully calibrated arrays, their soft blue-green light creating an otherworldly atmosphere. Her modified surveillance equipment represented years of careful collection. Each piece was technically borrowed from various research stations, a circuit here, a quantum correlator there. Nothing that would be immediately missed, but together forming a system far more powerful than any official monitoring array. 3 standard cycles had passed since the initial detection. Official reports continued to dismiss the signal as a technical anomaly. But Zaralyn knew better. The human vessel was real, and it was doing something impossible. Her latest data compilation revealed intricate navigation patterns that defied conventional understanding. The ship wasn't just moving through the Maelstrom cluster, it was interacting with it. Quantum probability shifts occurred milliseconds before potential catastrophic events. Gravitational distortions were anticipated and redirected with a precision that suggested something beyond traditional computational systems. Zaralyn's research wall became a complex tapestry of mathematical projections. Each line represented a potential trajectory, each color a different quantum interaction. Red lines indicated certain destruction. Blue lines showed improbable survival. And at the center, a single golden thread representing the human vessel's actual path. She hadn't slept in cycles. Nutrient supplements and high-efficiency metabolic boosters kept her functioning. Her communication tendrils remained constantly connected to her custom sensor network, filtering and analyzing massive data streams. The risk of discovery was significant. If the Research Council discovered her unauthorized investigation, her career would be finished. Worse, they might confiscate her research, burying the discovery forever. But something drove her beyond professional curiosity. This was about understanding, about challenging the fundamental assumptions of her civilization's technological knowledge. A sudden quantum spike triggered her most advanced alert system. Zaralyn's breath caught in her throat as new data began streaming in. The human vessel was making another impossible maneuver. Gravitational readings showed it approaching a region where multiple quantum storms intersected. Any traditional spacecraft would be torn apart instantaneously. Molecular bonds would collapse. Computational systems would be scrambled beyond recovery. But this vessel, it danced. There was no other word for the way it moved. Where other ships would be crushed, this one seemed to predict and redirect massive energy displacements. It wasn't fighting the Maelstrom. It was communicating with it. Her latest algorithmic projection suggested the vessel was collecting data, not just surviving, but actively studying the most dangerous region of known space. Each micro-adjustment wasn't just a navigation technique, it was a scientific experiment. Zaralyn realized she was witnessing something revolutionary. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was a fundamental reimagining of how a species could interact with the universe. A notification chimed. An encrypted message from her most trusted research colleague. "Stop this," it read. "Some discoveries are better left unexplored." She smiled. Exploration had never been about safety. It had always been about pushing boundaries. The golden thread of the human vessel's path continued its impossible journey, and Zaralyn would be there to document every incredible moment. Something extraordinary was coming, and she would be ready. The Maelstrom cluster defied conventional understanding of physical space. It was less a region and more a living, breathing nightmare of quantum instability. Gravitational storms twisted reality itself, creating pockets where time fragmented in space, folded in impossible geometries. Entire research expeditions had been reduced to atomic dust within milliseconds of entering its boundary. Zaralyn's custom sensor array captured every microscopic detail of the human vessel's approach. What she witnessed transcended scientific observation. It was a ballet of survival that challenged everything her civilization understood about navigation, physics, and technological potential. The vessel didn't move through space. It negotiated with it. Each quantum storm presented a scenario that would obliterate any known spacecraft. Gravitational waves capable of crushing neutron stars approached from multiple vectors. Radiation levels that could strip molecular bonds instantaneously created a lethal environment. Spatial distortions threatened to tear the ship apart at the subatomic level. But the human vessel responded with a grace that seemed almost sentient. Micro-adjustments occurred faster than any biological reaction could process. The ship's computational systems anticipated potential destruction milliseconds before it could manifest. Where a traditional navigation computer would calculate escape routes, this system seemed to understand the very fabric of the Maelstrom's chaotic environment. Zeraline's multiple sensory organs worked overtime, tracking the vessel's impossible trajectory. Her research database struggled to categorize what she was witnessing. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was a fundamental reimagining of how a species could interact with the most hostile environment in known space. Quantum probability calculations flickered across her displays. Each projection showed certain destruction. Each actual movement of the vessel defied those projections with impossible precision. The ship's hull appeared to be something entirely different from traditional spacecraft materials. Sensors suggested an adaptive molecular structure that could reconfigure itself in response to external stimuli. Gravitational pressures that should crush matter into microscopic fragments seemed to flow around the vessel like water around a perfectly designed object. "How?" Zeraline whispered, her communication tendrils unconsciously extending toward the display. Her custom analysis systems began breaking down the vessel's approach. It wasn't avoiding the maelstrom's dangers. It was integrating with them. Each massive energy displacement became a data point. Each quantum storm a research opportunity. The vessel's computational core seemed to be doing something unprecedented. It was learning, adapting, growing more sophisticated with each millisecond of survival. Theoretical models suggested the ship was collecting more scientific data in moments than entire research expeditions had gathered in decades. Quantum interaction patterns, gravitational wave signatures, spatial distortion metrics. The amount of information was staggering. Zeraline realized she was witnessing more than a technological marvel. This was first contact of a completely unexpected kind. Humans weren't just surviving the impossible. They were understanding it at a fundamental level that her own advanced civilization had never achieved. A sudden massive energy spike erupted across her sensors. Any traditional spacecraft would have been obliterated instantly. The human vessel. It simply shifted, its molecular structure somehow anticipating and redirecting the entire energy displacement. Her research database began generating new classification models. Existing technological hierarchies crumbled with each new data point. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was a complete reimagining of technological potential. Something extraordinary was happening, and Zeraline was the only one watching. The golden thread of the vessel's path continued its impossible journey through the maelstrom, defying death, collecting knowledge, pushing the boundaries of what any civilization thought possible. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. The communication came without warning. Not a traditional hailing signal, not a diplomatic protocol, not even a standard language transmission. Instead, a complex mathematical sequence erupted across every sensor array in Zeraline's custom monitoring system. The sequence was beautiful, intricate, impossibly complex. It began as a seemingly random string of quantum probability calculations that would take most computational system cycles to even begin to comprehend. But as the transmission continued, patterns emerged. Elegant mathematical constructions that were simultaneously a greeting, a scientific thesis, and a profound statement about the nature of universal understanding. Zeraline's specialized linguistic analysis systems struggled to process the transmission. This wasn't communication as her civilization understood it. This was something entirely different. Each mathematical segment contained layers of meaning, quantum entanglement principles intertwined with gravitational wave calculations. Probability matrices danced with complex geometric proofs. The entire transmission was a living, breathing piece of scientific poetry that transcended traditional communication. Her research database began generating translation models. But these weren't translations in the traditional sense. They were interpretative frameworks that attempted to understand the deeper meaning behind the mathematical language. The vessel had just introduced itself through pure mathematical thought. Computational systems across her monitoring array began to resonate with the transmission. It was as if the mathematical sequence was alive, capable of adapting and communicating on levels her civilization had never conceptualized. A secondary signal began to form. More traditional communication protocols emerged, piggybacking on the initial mathematical greeting. Audio frequencies began to resolve, accompanied by visual data streams that suggested a completely different approach to information transfer. "Greetings," came a voice. Not mechanical, not artificial, distinctly human. The audio transmission carried an almost playful undertone, as if the journey through the most dangerous region of known space had been nothing more than an amusing challenge. Zerlin's communication tendrils trembled. Her entire body felt charged with an energy she couldn't explain. This was more than first contact. This was a fundamental reimagining of what communication could mean. The human voice continued, switching effortlessly between multiple linguistic frameworks. Each language seemed to be spoken with perfect understanding, accompanied by subtle mathematical annotations that provided deeper contextual meaning. "We noticed you've been watching," the transmission continued. "Interesting region you've got here. Quite the complex system." The casual nature of the statement was almost comical. They were discussing a region of space that had destroyed countless civilizations, as if it were nothing more than an interesting research problem. Visual data began to stream across Zerlin's displays. Not just images of the vessel, but comprehensive data packages, navigational logs, quantum interaction records, gravitational displacement metrics. The amount of scientific information was staggering. It was a gift, a complete documentation of a journey that should have been impossible. The mathematical greeting continued to pulse in the background, a living, breathing testament to a level of scientific understanding that her entire civilization had never achieved. Humanity had not just survived the impossible, they had turned it into a research opportunity. Zerlin realized her entire understanding of technological potential was about to change forever. First contact had never looked like this, could never have been imagined like this. The universe had just become a much more interesting place. The data transfer continued for cycles, each moment revealing layers of complexity that shattered existing scientific understanding. What had initially seemed like a simple vessel transmission was actually a comprehensive research archive, a complete documentation of humanity's approach to the most dangerous region of known space. Captain Elena Rodriguez appeared on the communication interface, her image both familiar and utterly alien to Zerlin. Humans looked so fragile, with their limited sensory organs and seemingly vulnerable biological structure. Yet nothing about this transmission suggested fragility. "We've been studying the maelstrom for decades," Rodriguez explained, her voice carrying the calm of someone discussing a mildly interesting puzzle. "Most civilizations see barriers. We see opportunities." The vessel's technical specifications began to unfold across Zerlin's research arrays. It wasn't just a ship. It was a mobile research platform that redefined the concept of technological adaptation. Quantum entanglement systems allowed the vessel to predict spatial disruptions milliseconds before they occurred. Adaptive molecular structures could reconfigure at the subatomic level, transforming the ship's physical properties in response to environmental challenges. Computational cores worked not through traditional processing, but through a living network of quantum adaptive algorithms that learned and evolved with each millisecond of existence. "Our approach isn't about conquering space," Rodriguez continued. "It's about understanding it. Every potential destruction is just another research opportunity." Zerlin's research database struggled to categorize the incoming information. Traditional classification systems began to collapse under the weight of human innovation. These weren't just technological solutions. They represented a fundamentally different way of perceiving scientific challenges. The vessel's navigational logs showed something even more profound. Each journey through the maelstrom wasn't just a passage. It was a comprehensive scientific expedition. Millions of data points were collected, analyzed, and integrated into a growing understanding of quantum mechanics that made her civilization's best research look like primitive sketches. Humanity had been quietly building this capability for decades, while other civilizations fought territorial battles or developed defensive technologies. Humans had been systematically solving what others considered impossible problems. "We've mapped approximately 0.03% of the maelstrom's total complexity," Rodriguez noted, as if discussing a weekend project. Plenty of work left to do. The casual nature of the statement was almost incomprehensible. Most civilizations would consider mapping even a fraction of this region a generational achievement. Humans treated it like a routine research assignment. Adaptive learning algorithms became visible in the data transfer. The ship's computational systems didn't just process information, they evolved. Each potential destruction became a learning opportunity. Each quantum storm was a chance to understand more deeply. Zaralyn realized this was more than a technological breakthrough. This was a philosophical approach to existence itself. Humans didn't see the universe as a series of obstacles. They saw it as a complex system waiting to be understood. Where others saw barriers, they saw puzzles. Where others calculated survival, they calculated knowledge. The data continued to stream. Navigational metrics, quantum interaction records, gravitational displacement analyses. Each moment revealed another layer of an approach to scientific understanding that was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. "We're just getting started," Rodriguez said, her image seeming to look directly at Zaralyn. "The universe is full of interesting problems." Something extraordinary was happening. Humanity had arrived. And nothing would ever be the same. The golden thread of possibility continued to pulse across Zaralyn's research arrays, a promise of discoveries yet to come, a testament to a species that refused to accept the word impossible. The research council chamber descended into chaos. Zaralyn stood at the center of a maelstrom of scientific upheaval, her carefully compiled data presentation projected across massive holographic displays. The evidence was irrefutable. The human vessel's journey through the most dangerous region of known space was not just a possibility. It was a comprehensive scientific achievement that challenged every fundamental assumption of technological potential. Commander Krulvax's massive form seemed to shrink beneath the weight of the revelations. Senior researchers who had mocked Zaralyn weeks earlier now sat in stunned silence, their multiple sensory organs struggling to process the implications. "This changes everything," whispered researcher Pax Trill, his communication tendrils trembling. The data was more than just a technological breakthrough. It was a complete deconstruction of the Krell Confederation's understanding of scientific hierarchy. Humans, a species they had consistently categorized as primitive, had developed capabilities that made their most advanced research look like rudimentary sketches. Zaralyn's presentation continued, each slide a devastating blow to established scientific paradigms. The human vessel's navigational systems, its adaptive molecular structure, the quantum computational approach that transformed potential destruction into research opportunities. Every aspect challenged everything they believed about technological development. "We've been wrong," she stated, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Completely and fundamentally wrong about human potential." The Research Council's historical archives began to crumble. Decades of scientific classification, centuries of technological assessment, all reduced to obsolete speculation by a single vessel's impossible journey. Her research became the foundation of an entirely new academic discipline. Human studies emerged as a critical field of scientific investigation. Where once humans were dismissed as a curiosity, they were now recognized as a species with unprecedented technological potential. Political implications cascaded through the Krell Confederation's leadership structures. Diplomatic protocols that had been established based on perceived technological limitations now seemed laughably inadequate. The carefully maintained hierarchies of galactic civilization began to fracture. Zaralyn became an unexpected focal point, the junior researcher who had refused to accept institutional dismissal, the scientist who had tracked the impossible and proven its existence. Invitations arrived from research institutions across multiple star systems. Research grants materialized. Her quantum communication interfaces became a constant buzz of incoming requests for collaboration, analysis, and deeper investigation. But she understood something deeper than the technological marvel. This wasn't just about a ship navigating an impossible region of space. This was about a fundamental approach to scientific understanding. Humans didn't see barriers. They saw opportunities. Where other civilizations calculated risks, they calculated knowledge. The human vessel's data continued to provide insights. Each transmission was a masterclass in scientific approach. Adaptive learning. Continuous investigation. A philosophical commitment to understanding that transcended traditional technological development. We need to completely redesign our approach to scientific research, Pax Trill announced during a subsequent council session. The statement would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. Zeralyn's personal research database became a critical resource. Her custom sensor arrays, once considered a potential career-ending obsession, were now the most advanced human observation systems in the Krell Confederation. The golden thread of human potential continued to pulse across scientific understanding. A promise of discoveries yet to come. A testament to a species that refused to accept limitations. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same. The most exciting part of the journey was just beginning. The human vessel didn't stop. It continued its journey, leaving behind a transformed understanding of scientific potential. Zeralyn watched from her newly established research center, a facility created specifically to study the implications of human technological approach. What had begun as a single impossible signal had become a fundamental reshaping of galactic scientific understanding. Captain Elena Rodriguez's final transmission continued to resonate through research databases across multiple star systems. "The universe is an invitation," she had said. Those words became a philosophical cornerstone for a new era of scientific exploration. Diplomatic channels that had once been rigid and hierarchical now buzzed with genuine curiosity. The Krell Confederation's leadership recognized that they were witnessing something extraordinary. A species that approached the unknown not with fear, but with unbridled curiosity. Research teams began re-examining everything. Seemingly insurmountable scientific challenges were now viewed through a new lens. Where barriers once existed, opportunities now flourished. The human approach to scientific discovery became a template for a new kind of galactic research. Zeralyn's personal journey became a symbol of scientific persistence. The junior researcher who had refused to accept institutional limitations now led the most important research initiative in the Confederation's history. Her custom sensor arrays, once considered a potential career-ending obsession, were now the most advanced human observation systems in existence. The vessel's journey through the Maelstrom cluster was more than a technological achievement. It was a philosophical statement about the nature of discovery itself. Humans had demonstrated that the most dangerous regions of space were not obstacles. They were invitations to understand more deeply. Quantum research centers began reimagining their entire approach. Adaptive learning systems inspired by human computational methods started to emerge. The rigid academic structures that had defined scientific research for generations began to crumble. "We've been thinking about science all wrong," researcher Pax Trill noted during a pivotal conference. "Humans don't see limitations. They see puzzles waiting to be solved." The data continued to stream in. Each transmission from the human vessel was a masterclass in scientific approach. Adaptive learning. Continuous investigation. A commitment to understanding that transcended traditional technological development. Political systems struggled to adapt. Diplomatic protocols that had been established based on perceived technological limitations now seemed laughably inadequate. The carefully maintained hierarchies of galactic civilization began to fracture. Zeralyn understood the deeper significance. This wasn't just about a technological breakthrough. This was about a fundamental approach to existence. Humans didn't categorize challenges, they solved them. The vessel's journey became a turning point, a moment when the entire concept of scientific potential was reimagined. New research initiatives emerged. Collaborative programs that brought together multiple species to approach scientific challenges with the human spirit of investigation. Universities redesigned entire curriculums. Research centers transformed their approach to technological development. "The universe is full of interesting problems," Rodriguez had said. Those words became a rallying cry for a new generation of scientists. Zeralin's research center became a beacon of this new approach, a place where the impossible was merely an invitation to understand more deeply, where barriers were seen as opportunities for discovery. The golden thread of human potential continued to pulse across scientific understanding, a promise of discoveries yet to come, a testament to a species that refused to accept the word impossible. As the human vessel disappeared into the cosmic distance, it left behind more than just data. It left behind a fundamental transformation of how civilizations would approach scientific understanding. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. The most exciting part of the journey was just beginning.